Now that we learned our 4 key shaper sell rules, we have our 2 offensives, our climax top and our upper channel line break. We have our 2 defensive, our 10-week moving average break on volume and our head and shoulders top. Let's see how this would have worked in conjunction with the rest of our shaper buys and our uptrends that we studied earlier to have helped us to lock in our profits. I mean, it's really important that we spend so much time in finding these great winners, but if you can't lock in those profits, it really won't help you much. So let's see how they would have showed up in time to help you get out and make a lot of money. So here we're back again to our booking.com example, and I'm really going to try and use a lot of the same charts over and over again so you can really see how they all come together. And so once we had our nice shaper pattern, we had all those tactical buys we spoke about earlier and how we could have established a great position. We advanced for several months and you never really formed another base. So you were really months out of that initial base here. And we had a great 3-touch trend line and we advanced above that upper channel line, and that was our great selling point right into strength. Now eventually you went a little bit higher, but like I always like to say, it becomes hard money. You break rather significantly lower, and then as you advance, you just have a lot of really wide-ranging bars, and eventually this does roll over rather strongly in the 2008 financial crisis. But all of the key criteria were there. We had our 3-touch upper channel line break. We were the furthest from the 10-week moving average of the entire up move, and you saw some rather significant volume occur on the upside, showing that there was really people running to get into the stock after this significant advance. So great way you could have locked in that 240+% gain in 63 weeks, which is just a monster run in a little over a year. So here is Netflix, and this advance wasn't as significant as BK and G's. This was really the third base of the advance, so the move was a little bit quieter after this compared to the earlier bases. If you would have bought those, you would have had a much larger advance than just 145% advance. However, 145% advance in 49 weeks is still a great return. And so how would you lock in these great profits? So after this significant advance, you had this great 10-week moving average break that really showed you that you need to exit the stock. And you see the volume picked up rather significantly, but it wasn't the biggest volume of the entire move. This was larger, this was a little bit larger, and you closed just slightly below your 10-week moving average. And you know, if you weren't sure if that was the key week or not, the week after was on lighter volume. So this could have been a little bit confusing. Maybe you were unsure. Typically in this case here, I'll draw some good long-term trend lines and I'll notice that the trend is breaking. But if you really want to stick to those key criteria, thankfully we had our head and shoulders top that came in and got us out to at least lock in some of our profit from that advance. And you know, we broke lower, we had a rally up. Really, once you got below your 40-week, that would have been enough reason to sell because I won't hold anything below our 200-day moving average or 40-week moving average. But in terms of the key sell patterns here, this was your head and shoulders top. And if you wouldn't have used that sell point, you quickly broke almost another 50% lower. So you always want to be on the lookout, especially after many weeks. You're 49 weeks from any kind of discernible base here. And so you really want to be attentive to how you're acting around your 10-week lines and if there's any head and shoulders tops forming. So here is NVIDIA. We had this great cup and handle that we looked at before, along with all the different tactical buys that we analyzed. And that really led to this incredible 266% advance in only 49 weeks. Now we had this great upper channel line here. You can see this was tested multiple times, 4 to 5 times, and we finally advanced above. We were the furthest from the 10-week moving average of the entire move, and you had substantial volume come in, absolutely huge volume. And so that was a great point to sell into strength. There's only one catch. We had a flat base occur right here where you could have bought the stock along the way. And you're only 15 weeks, so a little less than 4 months out of that, flat base. And oftentimes I really try and stick to the minimum criteria because it's rather rare for these climax to happen less than 4 months or less than 16 weeks from that base breakout. So if you did not sell here because you're only 15 weeks, all is not lost. You had your 10-week moving average break soon after. Again, it doesn't mean you're going to sell top tick. If you would have sold anywhere in this vicinity here, you're not that much lower. It's still frustrating that you give back that extra profit. However, if you were unsure about your sell and you held on, you could have maybe sold partial. But if you did hold on, at least you had another backup way to get out of the stock. That's why it's so important you have all of these different techniques. And another key thing to look at is all the volume that was surging really on the downside. I mean, it started to become really evident, and you really want to look at that volume week by week to see how the market's reacting. And when you start to see the biggest up volume of a move, that's really typically early on signs of a real breakaway move that you're really right. And at the end of a trend, you start to see these volume surges and you see these reversals. That's really a sign that you need to exit. And what's great is after this stock consolidated, you formed this great, coiled triangle pattern on the weekly here, and you could have re-entered soon after, and this went on to be a big winner once again. And if you look at this volume, this was enormous volume on the upside. This completely reinvigorated the stock and brought all the buyers back in. So just because you sell doesn't mean it's over. It just means you need to step aside and reassess and wait for another great buy signal to enter, which did happen right here.